All right.
I think I just saw Linda come in the room.
Yeah, Linda's down there, Krista.
Yeah, I'm making.
I don't see Julie's phone number. Do you, Chris?
Mm.
All right, well, let's get started because we do, we have quorum with Linda. Where's Linda? Did we get her?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Linda.
Hi.
All right, we will call the adjourned meeting from January 12th, 2022 back to order. It is 6:02 p.m. And let's just do roll call. Matthew's here.
Chris is here.
Linda's here.
Zechariah's here.
All right. Moving on. So this is public
Here's
hearing on
Julie.
proposed.
Sorry, Matt.
That's okay.
She just
Where is she?
joining right now.
Sweet. Can we unmute her
Yeah.
so we can get her on roll call too? Hi, Julie. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yep. All right. So Julie Davis is also present. Public hearing on proposed rate increases of the district water services continued from January 12, 2022. We are now reopening the public hearing. And the board secretary, I'm going to ask her to declare the results of the canvass of the written protests that were received. So Krista, you can take it from here.
Thank you, board members. For the purposes of Prop 218 process, Western Hills Water District identified a total of 621 parcels which have an existing service connection or meter capable of receiving WHWD water services. On November 26th, 2021, a notice of the rate hearing and increase was mailed to the record owner of each of the 621 parcels. Western Hills Water District received a total of 428 potentially valid protests. 46 potential protests were rejected due to invalidity. They were either not signed by the property owner, failed to properly identify the parcel in question, were cast for the same parcel, or failed to provide proof of parcel ownership where it differed from the information provided by Stanislaus County. 90 potential protests were ineligible because they were submitted for parcels for which there are no existing service connections or meters, and therefore not considered eligible parcels. Out of the total 428 potentially valid protests, the Western Hills Water District only received 292 valid Proposition 218 protests for eligible parcels. In order to put forth a majority protest, 311 or more valid protests for eligible parcels must have been received by Western Hills Water District. Western Hills Water District received only 292 valid protests.
Krista, you have one more thing to state.
Okay, because only 292 valid protests were submitted by eligible parcels, there was no majority protest for purposes of Proposition 218.
Thank you for that information. we will now open up the meeting to public comments. And the comments will be 1 minute in length. It will only pertain to the 218 challenge because this is the public hearing portion of this meeting. So it'll be questions regarding Prop 218. And you'll have 1 minute. Crystal will also, Board Secretary will also let you know at when you have 20 seconds left. And we will then, she will mute you after the 1 minute mark. There will also, we're asking everybody to get everything they want to say in that 1 minute. We're not going to continue to go back through over and over and over again and allow this meeting to take 3 hours. So please say everything you want to say in the 1 minute. If you have a question, a comment, a statement, whatever, and we're here to listen to you. And we will begin with Andrea Torrance.
Hello, I have
Hi.
a question regarding the ones that were disqualified. Is there a way you guys can let us know which ones and why they were disqualified? Because it appears to me that the ballots were actually taken to your home versus locked up in a safe somewhere where they cannot be touched or tampered with. So, I mean, I honestly can't just go by your word of that was actually that many submitted. And also, have you guys checked your mail to determine if anybody had submitted theirs by mail?
All good questions. David, would you like to answer some of her questions?
Yeah, I would just suggest to the board that once we're through with the process, that all of the information is compiled and then placed on the website that's available for everyone to take a look at.
Excellent. I will answer the question that you asked regarding the ballots. The ballots never came to my house. Ron, you were in charge of the ballots. Would you like to explain the process of the ballots?
I received the ballots the night that at the board meeting. I took charge of those ballots, and those ballots were locked up in my office, where I am the only one that has a key. Nobody else has a key to it, and they cannot get into it. And they were in a safe place, and they never left my office.
Did those ballots ever? Did those ballots ever? Sorry, Ron. Did those ballots ever come to the Manning household or any board member's household?
They never did. I took possession of them the night of the board meeting, and they were in my possession in my office the whole time. And there were always 3 people present when they were being counted.
Okay,
Excellent.
I understand that you guys, what you're saying, but we were not allowed to attend a public meeting to view that for ourselves. So again, I was not there. The only parties there works for the Western Hill Water District or have some interest to gain or to pass this through for the Western Hill Water District. There was no outside source regarding the actual, if I'm not mistaken, I actually put this on the website. I don't know if you're part of the community groups or not, but per the code 353753, the process wasn't done properly. No, not everybody was notified because there was signatures of we were getting that people said they did not receive that notice. So that's one. Number 2, there was no official ballot mailed to each homeowner that was stated in that code. And I know my time is up, but I will circle back if I need to. But if you guys can address that.
No, thank you. Those are good questions. David, would you like to explain to Andrea about the water code and government code?
Yeah, it's my understanding that there's some misinformation going around about what Western Hills was doing and what they were required to do as a matter of law. I know that there's this citation to this government code 53753, which is part of the Prop 218 Omnibus Act. The problem with that section, in fact, it's in the title of the section. It's notice, protest, and hearing requirements for new, increased, or extended assessments. That provision only applies if an agency is adopting or increasing a special tax. Western Hills obviously isn't doing that. So if you go a couple more pages under the code section, it's 53755. And that's what an agency is required to do. And the title of that is Notice of Proposed Increase of Existing Fee or Charge for Property Related Service. And so none of the ballot requirement, there's no ballot for a rate increase. Those provisions that are required for when you're doing an assessment, when you're doing a tax, those don't exist when you're doing a rate increase. I mean, it's pretty simple. There's not much need to complicate it, frankly.
Okay. Thank you for your questions. And the next person is Rhonda Lucas.
All right, go ahead.
Hi, Rhonda.
Can't hear you if you're speaking. We still cannot hear you. Do we want to go to the next person until she sorts out her audio?
Hello.
Oh,
there you go.
hello. There you go. We can hear you.
You have my comments that unfortunately you forced me to submit through the sheriff's department. I would like those as part of this record. This entire process is a farce because you did not follow the constitutionally required notice and public hearing. And I would like to know why you didn't count any of Angels Crossing's ballots. You have no basis for that, and this entire 218 is invalid because of it. Thank you.
David, would you like to comment? You're muted, David.
I think the comments have been addressed broadly that they're relying on, frankly, just the wrong code section. And as far as which protests were valid or invalid, I think that there were some of Angels Crossing's protests which were received as valid, but only those parcels which have metered or service connections as allowed and required, frankly, by the California Constitution.
All right, any other questions? We'll give Andrea one more swing since there's nobody else asking questions. Go ahead, Andrea. Oh, wait, we have to unmute you. Can somebody unmute her, please?
Okay, is there a code in which you guys are following so that I can review it? Because that's the only code that I was able to pull up.
Yeah, it's 53755. You were
That's the one
following,
that you guys are,
that is the one by law we have to follow, correct? 53755, and
It's
it's for
5 and
property
frankly,
related services.
there's also more language. It's Article 13D, Section 6 of the California Constitution.
you said, can you repeat that again?
Sure, it's Article X111D, Section 6, and that's the California Constitution. And then the omnibus provision which applies is 53755.
Okay,
Thanks, Andrea. Mark Swisher's hand is up. Again, this is for 218 challenge discussion.
Yeah, my question, Matt, is who counted and who was in charge of validating whether they were valid or not?
So 3 people were involved. There was Ron Dimmers, Ashley Wilkins, and Krista Manning.
Okay, and then I would ask the board to consider opening this up to someone who would like to lead the Prop 218 piece. Maybe it's Andrea that could review the findings before you guys put it back in to keep quorum in the community.
David, would you like to answer that?
Well, I think what he's asking is that you guys hold off on making a decision until it's reviewed by whomever in the public, and that's the board's discretion. I would advise against it, but I think what we're doing is we're allowing for all of the information. It's public. It's going to be reviewed once it's available, and everyone can make their own judgment. And it's,
All right, we have Ron. Let's go with Vicky since Rhonda already spoke. Vicky,
Can you hear me?
Yep.
yes.
I'm having trouble hearing you, but I would like to know, you said there's 46 that were counted out because they were not signed, correct?
No, there's several different reasons.
Okay, well,
Um,
I would like to dispute those, so I would need to know which 46, because I went through all of them. I talked to each person personally, so I would like to know the reason for the 46 and which ones they were.
So David, would you like to answer that?
yeah, I mean, again, all that information will be made available.
No, but
It-
when and how will I dispute this?
I did
If
not.
it's not
state
given to
they
me.
were
Well,
failed to be
can't
signed.
give you, I can't give you legal advice on how to basically challenge.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm not asking for legal advice. I have my own legal advice. I'm asking for the 46 names and petitions that you are saying were not qualified.
Those will
And
be put out on the website.
Those will be provided in accordance with the Public Records Act.
And I did not.
So they're
state
gonna
they
be-
were not signed. That is not what I stated. I stated.
Right,
So
Chris,
what did,
Krista, yeah,
state
please.
it again then?
Yes, please. Krista, if you
Failed to
would restate.
properly identify the parcel in question or a duplicate, same parcel, or they failed to provide proof of parcel ownership where it differed from the information provided by Stanislaus County.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to seeing those
Okay.
because I have copies of each one. So I will go through them myself.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, Kevin,
Hello, can you hear me?
yes, sir.
Hey, couple of quick questions. One, I did hear something about the ballots not being signed at the beginning of the meeting. So I would just like to clarify the ones that, if we could just go over the numbers again and the reasons for those numbers that were said at the beginning of the meeting, because I came on just a little bit late. And then secondly, I would actually like to know what happened at the last meeting. I would like to know who was inside the building and ultimately the entire process as to why I guess the sheriff's office showed up. Again, I wasn't there. I'm just catching up on all this stuff. So
Sure,
these valid questions. I'm trying to get everything kind of put together in my own mind here. So
sure. Well, the board secretary gets ready to reread what she read at the beginning. First of all, going back to January the 12th, we had every intention on having that meeting open to the public. Unfortunately, something out of our control happened. If you all remember, the HOA had their meeting there the night before, and they had to cancel their meeting as well. They had to cancel their meeting because some people had COVID. We had the same situation in our circumstance. I had COVID for over 3.5 weeks. I'm still recovering. I am COVID negative now, but I'm still having breathing problems. But at the time of the meeting, every single person in that room had some type of contact with a COVID positive person. We had 2 people in on our staff come down with COVID. We had Ashley, who was there, had people in her family, direct family, that had COVID. Krista was taking care of me, my two sons that had COVID. Zechariah was there, who had also been involved with me, and he ended up getting COVID right after the meeting. And so out of the health concern and public safety and the COVID restrictions, we canceled the meeting and we put a notification in the front of the building that stated that. We also were having, yes, it was on the box, Andrea, I know you're nodding your head, but it was there because Krista put it there and Ron also put it there. And so basically, due to the fact that we had so many people sick, also because of Angels Crossings not paying the rent on the fireman's house and them being kicked out of there on December 31st because the owner of the house decided to, because they weren't getting a rent. Now our firemen sleep on mattresses inside that firehouse. And so we were going to put their lives in danger as well. I understand everybody believes differently on COVID, but we as a public utility company have to take it serious. And because so many people were coming down with COVID, it's very contagious right now with the Omicron, we made that decision at the very last minute with consultation with our legal counsel. And so that is why that happened. But if you all noticed, the meeting also was being held Zoom. We had a camera up. We had tables inside there 7 feet apart to protect those that were there that had already been, around people with COVID. We had that set up and we were trying to do this safely and securely. It did get out of control. I think there was about 4 people that were being not very respectful, screaming, hollering, and yelling. From our perspective, from this side of it, it was very loud. We could hear you all screaming and yelling that were involved. I don't think everybody was. And the numbers that came to us is there was about 10 to 15 people possibly there. And they wouldn't even let the door get shut. They were literally standing, not allowing us to shut the door so we could continue on with the count. So a decision was made because we couldn't have Ron guarding the door and counting ballots. So we made a decision to continue this on until this evening. And that is what occurred last or a couple weeks ago.
We had a vote, by the way. All of
Oh,
us
yes.
board
And we
members.
had a vote. Yep. We had a vote. If you watched the video, we made a motion on whether or not we were to cancel and continue the meeting. And every single board member, it was a 5-0 vote. Every board member voted that we continue the meeting until tonight. And so
Can I
that's what we
step
did.
in for a moment, Matt?
Sure, Dick.
Great. So I do just want to make a statement because I wasn't down there at the firehouse when this happened. And I was given information that appeared to differ from the videos I watched. So, I think we should have went ahead and finished up that count down there that day. So I do disagree with that because the information I received,
Well,
I think
hindsight's
that was
always
bad
2020.
to
Hindsight is always 2020.
No, I have to agree with Julie because the information that we were given during that meeting, this is Linda, by the way, I actually do have a very severe case of COVID right now, which is why my camera is not on because you don't want to see me right now. But I agree with Julie. The information we were given did not match up with the video that I watched, several videos from several different people. So it wasn't even all taken from the same person as to what was happening outside. And I'm very, very disappointed and very, very upset that the information that we were given was that it was a very rowdy group. I will agree that somebody was standing in front of the door. Miss Lucas was, according to the videos. So we couldn't shut the door, but I did not see anybody holding the door so that we couldn't shut the door.
What information are you guys referring to that you were given?
We were watching it on the video.
You weren't watching it, you were listening to it just like me.
And those
So we
videos
were-
did not show.
we were given information that there
during
was
the
no
meeting,
One,
we were
one at a
told-
time,
no.
one at a time, please. One at a time.
during the meeting, we were told that there was a rowdy bunch of people trying to push their way in.
Yes.
They were not allowing Ron to shut the door. The other part was that we were told that there was no way that we could count those ballots that night. We were also told that it was only Angels Crossing outside. When I asked specifically if we couldn't let some of the people in and give them a chair and let them watch. I wasn't even allowed to finish my comment because I was going to say, as they do with all of the public voting, all of the absentee ballots, there are people from the opposing sides who actually watch the count. So I didn't see any problem, means the people were there and there weren't that many. We were told there were a lot listen to the video. We were told there were a lot, but there weren't that many. They could have come in and witnessed at least what was counted. It was also said that people were afraid for their safety. I didn't see anybody getting violent. I didn't see anybody getting physical. I did hear yelling, yes, but I also heard yelling from a few of our own board members and some comments that were very inappropriate from our own board members.
So
I have
Ron,
to agree with
you were
Linda.
there. Hold on a second. Ron was actually there. So Ron, I know what you told me after the meeting. Would you like to share that with everyone now?
Referring
Of your
to-
safety and what you felt.
I personally was never worried about my safety. My secretary, Ashley, she was actually terrified just because there was certain people out there that were getting out of hand. Not everyone, but certain people. And that's what tipped everybody off. It's,
Hindsight's always 20/20. If we'd have gotten different information, our vote would have probably been different. But with the information that we got that evening, right or wrong, that's the decision that happened. I mean, we apologize that things didn't go smoother. But again, when you have people yelling and screaming in people's faces and not being respectful, these type of things happen. And hindsight's always 20/20. And so, to the community, we're sorry that this went down this way, but at the same time, again, Monday morning quarterbacking is always easy, but when the situation is where it was, people did not feel safe.
I just want to make a quick statement that the moment I heard that anyone inside that building was having concerns about their safety, it's shut down time. That's the end of it. I don't care what you think you saw or heard, but you did hear it. We all heard it live. It's in the video. That's all it took to shut it down and continue it till later. That's what matters, is the safety. Not what you think you saw or what you think happened or any sort of nonsense you've heard from anyone else. If someone in that building was concerned about their safety, that's what matters. End of story.
Well,
debating it now, there's nothing we can do about it. We got some misinformation possibly, but we made the decision with the information we had at the time. And hashing this and rehashing it's not going to change the fact that we're now on January 26th and we can't go back to January the 12th.
well, Matt, I just want to say I have to disagree with that. I mean, to me, the whole thing looks a little bit ridiculous. I am a board member. This was a public meeting. The people did have the right to be there. And it seems like there's all kinds of excuses for it. I don't want to be put into that box. I was given information that there was a big riot outside, and I simply did not see that. So since this is a public meeting, the public does have a right to be there. So I can certainly see why people would be upset. The other thing is if we're throwing out these ballots or these protests, the people do have the right to know exactly why they were thrown out. Now, I do know that we need a rate hike, I did not vote for this particular rate hike for the same reason probably a lot of people didn't. And so I'm going to be voting no for it tonight as well, because I think something else should be passed entirely, which is why I think everybody went ahead and submitted their protest. But I do think this is bad optics, terrible optics. We're a small community, so to lock people out, I disagree. And I was given bad information on that to move that meeting. There simply was not a riot. There was like 5 or 6 people outside on the video. So I just want to let you know that I disagree.
That's cool.
I'm with Julie. I'm in the same boat with Julie. I felt like.
All right, it's on the record that
With all due respect, guys, I was actually there. Okay. And I'm not sure what misinformation we're referencing, but I never used the word riot. I never used any sort of language that would suggest anything riotous going on. There was very disrespectful people. Unfortunately, they were in my face when I was trying to explain to them that the situation was being altered a bit because of the COVID. So really the reason why we did not vote was really twofold. The main thing was one of the people that was supposed to be there involved in the count had to be stationed at the door because I was there. I can tell you that they were not allowing that door to be closed. If I were to try to close that door as it was suggested I do, I would have been pushing people out of the way. There would have been arms closing the door. I wasn't about to get in a confrontation with potentially people of our community. That's not what I'm looking to do. So one, we had the COVID situation. And number two, we didn't have the person that was supposed to be there involved in the count. Things can't proceed. And honestly, from what we heard from our secretary, we had such a vast amount, granted, a lot of them were invalid, but we had the protests. It was going to be impossible to sort through all of those in that evening, given those circumstances. So if you go back and watch the video, you will find that the decision was made based on the amount of protests that had to be sorted through and the fact that we didn't have the proper staff there. Ron wasn't able to be involved to make it happen. That was the decision that was made, and you can go back and watch the video and hear the basis of that decision.
Okay. So, David, I would like you to chime in on the issue of those who counted the ballots and the law regarding whether or not they have to be counted in front of the public.
No, I mean, that's one of the misinformation that's being bandied about is obviously you want to be as transparent as possible. The situation didn't exactly allow for it. And frankly, most 218 protests don't happen in a small community where it's possible and feasible to count all the votes in one night. So if you live in like the city of Modesto, which has 218 increases, those aren't all processed in one night. They're everything's known basically ahead of time, and they're counted, and it's the fact of whether or not there was a majority protest is represented or not. It just so happens because of our sample size, it's possible to do so under normal times. There is no requirement. I mean, it's kind of I don't want to get into the weeds, but basic statutory interpretation is such that if the legislature says if you want to do A, then you have to do all of these certain ballot issues and it has to be in public. And they don't say the same thing for B here, which is a rate increase, and it's not required. It's Prop 218 protest is not an election. It's not a ballot. It doesn't have those hallmarks and those formal requirements that are associated with those other types of processes.
Well, I totally agree with you, David. I totally agree with you because I've worked for other cities and I've been involved with water rate increase with other cities. I don't think that's a problem. But the problem lies in that we set up the expectation that people were going to be able to see this happen, and then we shut them out. Of course, they're upset.
But again, Linda, you have to understand that we had every intention of making this open. This is why I went there and set up the camera and set up the entire situation so it could all be transparent in front of everybody.
But it doesn't look that way. It really does not look that way. Even to me as a board member, it doesn't look that way.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, Lynn, but unfortunately you weren't there. I was there. And so I do know the way it actually played out, not only the way that it looked, but the way that it literally played out. So I can tell you that you can choose to believe me or not believe me. That's, within your, you can make that choice. But what I can tell you is that because of COVID, as Matthew described, it was decided that it wasn't a safe atmosphere to bring in a bunch of people. That is the fact. That is the truth. And as he also stated, the HOA had canceled their meeting the night prior for the exact same situation. And I don't remember an outcry for that, to be honest with
Okay,
you.
then
So
why wasn't any of this said at the meeting? No, this is the first time I'm hearing this. Why
Okay.
wasn't it said last week?
So,
And then maybe we wouldn't have so many people upset.
So
Look,
Linda, I will apologize for the fact that during that meeting, I had 101 temperature. And if you watch me on the video, I was barely and struggling to get through the meeting. We all had been sick for weeks and we needed to get this 218 done. So everybody was doing their part and we wanted to have that meeting open, but because everyone was falling sick, we had 2 employees get sick with COVID that day. Ashley's parents got COVID. Her roommate got COVID. So, she's had her own battles with COVID. Krista taking care of me, taking care of the others. Zechariah ended up with COVID. This was a serious situation. And as a public utility company, talking to our attorney, we don't want the legal liability to have a public meeting where we all have knowledge that all of us had been involved in being around people with COVID and then enter 10, 12 people, them get COVID, and then them find out we all had COVID and we didn't do anything and we allowed this meeting. Then we could have another problem on our hands.
But I'm not disputing that. None of this was said on the 26th.
I think it was alluded to at
No.
one point. I think I did make a statement that I had COVID and that we closed this meeting down due to COVID concerns. Could I have been more detailed? Yes. And so to that, I apologize. But again, when you have 101 fever and you're trying to get, you know how it feels right now, you're going through it. Your brain's not working 100%. So for that, I apologize to the community if I wasn't clear on what exactly was going on. We're clearing that up tonight, and I hope that will help calm the nerves of some of the people that were frustrated.
and I actually want to personally apologize to individuals that may have shown up that simply wanted to be a part of the process.
Mhm.
They were informed that they could be there and that they could be involved physically in the building, and to find out, to kind of walk into a situation which was, let's be honest, it was a little bit unruly at some point. And for them to be denied access, I do apologize to you guys. I thought about it afterwards. I'm like, man, what a bummer that they had to, be turned away because of all the situations. So there was a couple of people there, unfortunately, that kind of raised things to a higher temperature than needed to be. But for all the other people out there that, may have shown up, I apologize that you weren't able to get the experience that you expected.
All right. Who else? Okay, is it Yvonne? Yvonne?
Hello,
I'm
can you hear
butchering
me?
your name. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes, it's Ivan.
Ivan, sorry about that.
That's okay. My question is, with the ballots, did Western Hills Water District, when they mailed out the ballots, can they verify that they mailed it to everyone? Because I never received a ballot. So
Yes.
I'm just
So,
wondering. So my vote didn't count.
David, can
because-
you explain how the county of Stanislaus works and how and who we mailed the ballots to? David? Is David with us still?
He may be muted. Let's see.
I've been here 3.5 years. I'm the original owner of my home. So I've been here the whole time. So I just don't understand why I didn't receive a ballot.
Yeah, Ron, how many ballots came back returned to sender? Approximately.
There was like 20, 23 or
26.
24.
26.
26. So 26 came back, returned to sender. I have no idea whose those are, but basically we go by, since David's not with us right at the moment, we pull the county tax roll, and the county tax roll is updated twice a year, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but I believe I was told twice a year. And so when we pulled it, that pulling is the addresses that we use. And that is what the law tells us to use according to 53755, which we talked about earlier from the omnibus bill.
I'm sure I'm on
so-
I'm sure I'm on there on the taxes because I pay my
Yeah,
taxes.
right. So every single person that has a property that has water coming to it did get mailed a ballot.
I did not. That's
If
what
it
I'm
was-
saying. I didn't get mailed about it.
I don't know. We can check on that for you, but I'm just telling you, we went by the, Krista, you can verify this if you'd like, but I believe you printed the labels directly from the county website, correct?
Yes, that is correct. From the county list, I printed the labels. And we double checked everything to ensure that each and every parcel eligible would get a notice.
So that could tell you that the county has the wrong address for you. That's also a possibility. But we can only go by what the county gives us. I don't know if that answered your question. I hope it did. All right, Kevin.
Yeah, quick question. My original question wasn't answered about what was said at the beginning of the meeting. And secondly, there's some comments that were made after this whole incident by the water board about, it being a riot or it being a coup, and it being, they referenced what happened to the Capitol, stuff like that. So I just want to hear that side of it and why a public entity is able to make those remarks. But main one is, I just want my first question to be answered about what was said at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, yeah, Krista, would you like to read again the numbers for him?
Yes, should I start from the beginning or?
Sure, just for people that came in late.
Okay. For purposes of the Prop 218 process, Western Hills Water District identified a total of 621 parcels which have an existing service connection or meter capable of receiving Western Hills Water District water services. On November 26, 2021, a notice of the rate hearing and increase was mailed to the record owner of each of the 621 parcels. Western Hills Water District received a total of 428 potentially valid protests. 46 potential protests were rejected due to invalidity. They were either not signed by the property owner, failed to properly identify the parcel in question, were cast for the same parcel, or failed to provide proof of parcel ownership where it differed from the information provided by Stanislaus County. And I know someone brought up a point about not signed. That's saying not that they didn't have a signature. I'm saying they were not signed by the property owner. 90 potential protests were ineligible because they were submitted for parcels for which there are no existing service connections or meters, and therefore not considered eligible parcels. Out of the total 428 potentially valid protests, Western Hills Water District only received 292 valid Proposition 218 protests for eligible parcels. In order to put forth the majority protest, 311 or more valid protests for eligible parcels must have been received by the Western Hills Water District. Western Hills Water District received only 292 valid protests. Because only 292 valid protests were submitted by eligible parcels, there was no majority protest for purposes of Proposition 218.
Right. And the only other person that has not had a chance to speak is DL. So we'll give DL a 1 minute.
Hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious why, if we were trying to be transparent, no matter which way it fell, why didn't we set up cameras like, for example, tonight, and have the same 3 people count between a specific time or whatever the votes? Just why it just doesn't look good that we counted it. I'm not saying secrecy, but why wasn't it counted in the public eye, which everyone's upset about?
Were you here for David's response, our attorney?
I know you don't have to do it. I'm just saying, if everyone's trying to be, the original reason Zach said he set it up was so that we could be transparent. They had the camera there and all that, and I get that COVID.
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
even if we had started the count that night, it would not have been finished because there were 400. What is the number? 428 potential protests. And to go through 428 protests and make sure that they work with the law and what is valid and what is not valid, we would have only been, it would have taken until probably midnight or 1 a.m. And for example, Linda is, 2 hours ahead,
right? But and
that would have been 2 or 3 in the morning. So we would have still came to here. We would have still came to tonight.
I'm not saying it has to start at 6 o'clock at night. If you really want to listen to it and be a part of it, have a camera set up. Even if it was done beforehand, you could have recorded it all beforehand so everyone could have seen it. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So then it could have been, Chris Blessing could have thrown it on YouTube and it would have all been there, and there it was. It's the video can't lie.
The other thing you have to remember too is the people that we're counting are volunteers.
Sure.
Ron isn't, and Ashley, they work, but they also have a job to make you water. So we can't have them spending all their day doing this. So even with the counting now, it was a little bit until it got done. There was no just sitting down for one day to do this.
I understand that, but the point
so just so you understand,
you could have done it in sections. Okay, today we're going to count for 15 minutes from this time to this time. This is the end of this counting. Blah blah blah. Moving on. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, point taken. Anybody else? Okay, so we are gonna close this portion of the public comment section for 218. We've already had everybody up here has already
have their hand up.
asked their question. Right, and we said at the beginning that they each were gonna get a minute. They were each gonna have a minute, and we were going to move forward.
Well, why don't everybody's already very upset, Matt? Why don't you just let everybody talk?
We have time.
It's a public meeting.
We have a little bit of time. We'll do another round.
I see Kristen Galloway. She hasn't said anything yet. I'd like to give her the opportunity to speak.
Oh yeah.
If possible.
Sure. Go ahead, Kristen. I didn't see her.
Hi, good evening. It's because I'm a late ad. Sorry, kids. I'll try to make it brief. So
no problem.
Sorry, I probably should have written everything out, but I don't. Again, kids. So let me just tell you very briefly. I'm a new-ish ad to the community. I've been here for a little over a year now, and there are so many great things about us, but I feel like there's just a ton of just yuck that's overshadowing it. And I'm not slinging mud because that's not my jam. Just let me tell you, I think that there were good and there were bad that came out of the last meeting. I would be remiss if I didn't say this. I understand there were possibly some safety concerns, be it health and maybe even, bodily safety that were thrown about the last meeting. I unfortunately am seeing a lot of shirking by the board for the theatrics that played out at the last meeting. I'm not going to point fingers. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to sling mud. Just know that the community is really, really upset, and rightfully so, because something that maybe could have been, a 6 p.m. Blip on our news radar turned into an Emmy-winning performance. So just know that the same transparency and decorum that the board is asking of from the community, they should also completely and utterly abide by those same rules. And there's a bunch of other comments that I could make, but it sounds to me like coming in late that they've already been issued. So just know I'm not perfect, and I'm more than happy to answer any and all questions that come my way, but the voting and everything it just seems ugly, and I don't like it. Just on record, I just don't like it.
Thanks, Kristen.
I think it's important to mention, I think we get a little off in the weeds, and I certainly understand, the desire of everybody to be fully involved in the process, which is why we as a district, we continue to do so, be very transparent with things. And I think it'd be very hard for people to argue against that if you watch back in all the videos. I think we have a track record of trying to be as open and honest with this community as possible. But I think there's a little bit of a misnomer, a misunderstanding. There is really no law, there's no statute that says any of the counting has to be done in front of anybody. Modesto, different cities, and when they go through their Prop 218, everything isn't, the entire community isn't invited into a room to watch the counting. It's not all done on cameras. But we as a district, it kind of, brings to light the saying, no good deed goes unpunished. That was kind of the situation here. Maybe we tried to be overly transparent with the community, and it ended up, because it didn't work out because of the COVID and the other situations with people showing up and tempers getting high and getting a little, unruly. We weren't able to have the counting with Ron, as mentioned. It basically created this bad optics that never would have been there if we wouldn't have tried to be as transparent as we did, even though we weren't obligated to do so. So I just think I think we need to kind of remember that there is no law that says we have to do this in front of anybody, but we tried to. We really did try to. I can tell you that. We even had a secondary camera set up as well. So it shook down the way it did. And as Matt said, Monday morning quarterback is always easy to do, but here we are now, and we're trying to do the best that we can with it.
All right. Andrea, we'll let Andrea go again. She's been waiting quite a while.
Thank you. I have some concerns regarding, and also statements. I was one of the people that were out there that night, and I can tell you that the side doors were open. Zachariah closed those doors. Nobody said anything or did anything because you guys were having your closed session. It was very understanding. The front door, so you guys, I know that you said that there was a note that was placed out front. That note on that box stated that the ballots needed to be dropped off in there. That's what I read, but I will double check and see if there's anything that I have in my records that shows otherwise. The second thing is, far as leaving the door open, that front door, Ron could have easily went and in my opinion, he could have went and made those counts and left the door open so that people at the door could at least see. I understand that he was there guarding the door, but at some point, if anybody would have seen the video, they could see that he could have easily closed the door. They were making it seem, I heard myself that there was people feeling threatened. I left before the sheriffs even got there because I heard that, and nobody was threatened. I left because I said, I don't want anybody to feel threatened. It was just totally, I heard a certain person, well, actually, you know what, I'll say the name because it was stated on the videos that we were heard of cows by Zachariah. The person screaming that you guys heard, he left because he was upset at what he heard. So yes, there was up screaming that you guys heard, and Zachariah was there and he heard what he said. He left the same time I left because nobody wanted to feel like somebody was threatened. That person took the high road and left, and I applaud him for that. The second thing is COVID. You guys mentioned COVID. Zachariah did not have a mask on when he was there. There was sheriffs that were let in without a mask. Ron did not have a mask. Ashley did not have a mask. Ashley actually was out talking to us. So for her to feel like she was threatened, I'm like, wow, okay. She was out kikiing with us, and anybody and everybody that was there would have seen that. So I've seen some great things happen that night on January 12th. Actually, that was my birthday. So I saw some great things. I saw two people that went head to head on social media, screaming at each other, calling each other every name in the book, hug each other that night. That was the highlight of my night. I still remember that. That was an awesome feeling on my birthday to see two people that I mean, I was shocked when they introduced each other because I thought it was going to be some screaming thing, and they immediately hugged that night.
All right.
So it was not no January 6th thing or anything like that. I just want to put that for the record. But if Ashley got COVID, and as you saying she got COVID, everybody got COVID, they were there without masks. I saw them myself without masks. Everybody that was wanting to go in had masks. We could have all sat in different corners of the building, but we weren't allowed in.
All right.
So that's just my statement.
Zechariah, since she accused you of not having a mask on and you were in our video cameras the entire time with a mask on, and I think some of the videos show you with a mask on, what would you like to say about that?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I did have a mask on the entire time. The only time I didn't have a mask was when I let it down and took a sip of my drink. You can see it twice in the video, probably a maximum of about 10 seconds. So I'm not sure that misunderstanding there, but I 100% had a mask on. But I do want to address something that she said. And you know what, guys, I'll be honest with you. I felt bad about that comment afterwards. I certainly didn't mean it in any sort of context that it may have been taken in. In the heat of the moment, it was kind of a chaotic situation. We were trying to hold a board meeting. We're actually trying to take care of business. And like I said, we needed Ron to be involved in that business so we could do everything transparent and show the community everything that's going on. And unfortunately, just wasn't able to proceed. There were some people yelling things. And you know what? I apologize, guys. When I said a herd of cattle, it was just an analogy in my head. I just imagined people just pouring in the door and making noise. I didn't mean people or cattle. I didn't mean anything like that. And I literally felt bad about it. I actually talked to Matt about it. It's something that I regret saying. And so community, I ask you to please forgive me for using that terminology, but I absolutely 100% had a mask on the entire time, except for 2 sips of Coke, or excuse me, water. And that's just the truth.
All right, guys, we've had everybody speak. We can beat the dead horse forever, but we are gonna now. There, can you hear me now? Having problems with audio again.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go with Mark. The 3 people that are there, Mark, Vicky, and Rhonda will be the last 3.
So like Ivan, I also did not receive a ballot. And in texting 2 of my neighbors that have been here I've been here since 13. They've been here longer than I have. And they're homeowners. They also had not received a ballot. So we might have a bigger issue here on the ballot mailings. Not sure why we went off of I don't know, some county record when we seem to have billings that go out, which brings me to my next question, because I thought we couldn't do an election because we had changed to a resident district versus a homeowner district. So who got to vote in this? A resident, renter, or owner, but someone living in, or just owner?
So David, are you there again?
Yeah, there's two parts to that. The first is we go off the county because the information comes directly from the county. That way, there's no question about who the record owner is, or if we have different addresses. And it's just a black letter law and a rule that we follow. So there is no question about, oh, did somebody move a different address? We can point to the one that we received from the county. To your second question, whether or not the district is a landowner voting district or a resident voting district doesn't have anything to do with Prop 218. Prop 218 prescribes that the parcel owner is entitled to of eligible parcels could receive notice and can cast a protest. And if there's a tenant that's responsible for paying the bill, they also can submit a protest. However, only, let's say that two people submit one protest for one parcel, and both are somehow valid, only one counts. There's only one protest per eligible parcel.
Okay, hope that answers your question. Oh, David, can you also address the issue with mailings and people protesting even if they didn't receive a mailing? It's not about voting, it's about protest. It's a protest, not a vote.
Yeah, I mean, the law requires us to identify the parcels, which was done. Once we identify the parcels, we get the owner information from the county, and those notices get mailed out. I mean, that's really all the district can do. And whether or not notice is received one way or the other doesn't really prevent somebody from submitting a protest, so long as it's an eligible parcel. That's really the issue.
Perfect. All right, Vicky. Vicky again. Can we unmute Vicky?
I'm trying. She's
Oh, okay.
responding to it. There she is.
All right, let's go to Rhonda while Vicky's trying to get her sound working. Oh, sorry,
Hello?
Rhonda, let's go. Yeah, Vicky, we can hear you now. Hang on
Okay.
1 second, Rhonda.
Okay.
Go ahead, Vicky.
An email was sent out to the board a little after 2 p.m. on that day saying there would be no public meeting. So why wasn't the community notified that there was not going to, it sounds like it was already decided through the board that there was not going to be a public meeting. Why wasn't the community notified?
I'm not sure what email went out stating there was going to be no public meeting.
Well, Linda posted the email that you sent out to the boards showing that there was not going to be a public meeting that night.
No,
but none of us were informed.
That email was actually, well, number one, that email was confidential, but that email was about Mark Kovich asking if he needed to be on our closed session first and then run over to the fire station for the open meeting. And all I was telling our board member was, because these decisions happened very quickly, I said, everything's going to be online for the board members. They don't need to worry about going over there. So this was not about some statement to the board that you're sort of alluding to. This was answering a board. It was answering a board member.
I have a copy of the email, Matt. You could spin it any way you want.
Okay, first and foremost,
go ahead.
That the email was not confidential, Matt. There's no way it was confidential. And number two, it was a notice to us that there would be no public meeting. That because up until that, I received your email. It was my understanding that there was going to be a public meeting with a Zoom included. And until I received your email, telling me that there was not, and there was only going to be a Zoom meeting. So it was.
The email
a
was
notice to
responding,
us.
the email was responding to Mark, just so you know, because Mark was concerned or confused. So it was a response to Mark, and it went out to everybody because Mark emailed everybody asking. And so it was a response, and we were in the middle of deciding whether or not we were going to have the public be there or not. So we were still talking with our lawyer about how we were going to do that. When I was responding to Mark, at least we knew that Mark could be online. He did not have to go over there, or none of the board members did, because we had a board member there already. So it was that type of a response.
I just want to tell you what you did and your group was so unprofessional, starting with Zachariah calling us names. It didn't need to be like that. If he knew before he came out and got that box, we should have been informed. I was there at 4 o'clock. Zachariah was there. Nothing was said. And then when he got there and Krista got there, nothing was said.
Vicky,
should have been. You did not have
Vicky.
to start all this.
Vicky,
Hang on one second. Zachariah, go ahead.
with due respect, I spoke to your husband, Carlos. Him and I had a very cordial exchange. I said,
well,
we're not going to be doing it in person that night because of COVID. I literally told him to his face, and we had an understanding. Now I understand that for whatever reasons, maybe it's not beneficial now to reference that conversation, or if maybe there was a misunderstanding. I have no idea. But I can certainly tell you that I stood face to face with Carlos, and I told him that in person was not going to happen. This is why I'm setting up all these cameras. All of the backstory was given.
He said he told you that the in-person wasn't going to happen. No.
I don't know what the no is in response to, but that's how it played out. I mean, I don't understand where the disconnect is, to be honest with you, Vicky. And in terms of.
Someone muted her.
Okay. I'm sorry you feel that way, honestly.
All right, so we'll move on to Rhonda.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak a second time. First of
Thanks
all,
for your patience.
First of all, Angels Crossing did not receive a single mailing of anything. So regardless of the code that you proceeded under or your alleged mailing process, there were serious flaws and the public notice did not occur. Angels Crossing didn't receive a single notice.
I believe,
however,
just let me just answer that one. I believe that yours are some of them that came back, returned to sender. I think Ron, you're shaking your head, yes. But again, that's because you don't have your correct address at the county. Because we double checked yours, because we read your letter. And a lot of yours came back returned to sender because the address at the county is different than, I guess, where you want them mailed. But we did mail them to you, and we have proof of that.
Do still have a question about the 218, but I'm formally making a Public Records Act request for all of the return mailings and notices that you received, for the entire list that you use for the mailing, and for whatever process, documents indicating the process that you used to notify people and the decision you made for whatever codes you were going forward under. Now, my question is, at the beginning of the meeting, you stated that some of them, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, in order to have a say in this process and be eligible to file a protest, you needed to either have a hookup or be metered or something. That's why some of them were thrown out. I believe the number was 90. So my question is, with respect to those that were thrown out for not having a hookup, do any of those receive raw water? And does this 218 involve golf course raw water increase? And if it does not, when will you be doing the 218, or will you be doing a 218 for the golf course raw water increase? David,
would you like to answer that?
To the extent that any of the parcels are currently or immediately capable of receiving irrigation water or water, excuse me, they were included on the eligible list. To the extent to which the raw water is affected by this increase, that's a good question. I do not know. I think it is, but it's whatever the rate increase, it's whatever the notice specifies.
All right.
Thank you, David. I would like to also add to my Public Records Act request again, the list of all of the parcels that you have identified as being quote unquote eligible to participate. And I would just like to make a suggestion. There's clearly problems with people receiving notices, not receiving notices. I'm not going to rehash anything that has already been handled, but I would like to offer a suggestion. You extended this meeting. Some would question whether that was proper. The process is tainted. What would the harm be in extending for 2 weeks this entire process? Allow protests to be filed. Let's just redo it for 2 weeks and get it done right, because it's that important. And I would strongly encourage the board, if they meant what they said earlier about transparency and about doing the right thing, I think that that is a good compromise solution. And we just redo it for 2 weeks. Whoever wants to protest can protest, and we do this all over again. I would strongly encourage you to consider that, because that would be a lot cheaper than a class action lawsuit.
Just a quick follow up on that. I think that's the 2 week issue is kind of a non-starter, because you can't start and stop the protest process and make it smaller than the initial 45 days. So you'd have to start all over at this point.
Then I would strongly encourage you to start all over for the good of the entire community, given all of the irregularities and everything that has unfortunately transpired and tainted this process.
I have to chime in. I'm sorry. I would be remiss if I didn't. I just, with all due respect, I think it's somewhat rich to stand in front of the community, and the fact that we're all in this situation because you have never paid one thin dime to help support this community or this district, and to stand on some sort of soapbox and try to orate to everybody here what is good behavior and what is bad behavior is rather rich in my book. I'm not sure how it plays with everybody else, but personally, I don't want to have a water rate increase. I would like to continue to pay the rates that I am, but because we have a landowner who has not invested in this community the fiscal amount that matches the oration that has been given to this community, we are in this very position.
Damn right.
So, you know, I could say a lot more, but I'm going to guard my tongue right now. You know what? I think this community's been through enough. And if I just encourage everybody to pull the veil from your eyes and see what's really going on here. I think it's very interesting that we have these alliances being formed. And I think it's very beneficial to some when it should not be. So I don't, I find it amazing, honestly. That last statement given by Rhonda is quite amazing.
I couldn't agree more.
With that said, we're closing the public meeting and hearing. So there is no valid majority protest. So we are going to consider the adoption of the resolution declaring and confirming results of notice proposition 218 protest proceedings and approval rate increase and related actions for the water services. I am making a motion to approve resolution number 2022-02, declaring and confirming the results of notice proposition 218 protest proceeding and approving the rate increase and related action of water service. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, and we will do this by a roll call. Zechariah?
Aye.
Chris Blessing?
Aye.
Linda Kuipers?
No.
Julie Davis?
No.
The motion passes.
After
And
you,
now-
aye, Matt.
Pardon me?
You just have to eye for yourself.
Oh, I for me. Yes, I for me, I for Matthew. Okay, so the public comment, so now that's over. The public comment on items not on the agenda. Interested persons in the audience or by teleconference are welcome to introduce any topic within the district's jurisdiction. Matters presented under the agenda item may be discussed, but no action can be taken by the board at this meeting except as follows. A, briefly respond to statements made or questions raised. B, ask a question for clarification. C, provide a reference to staff or other resources for factual information. Request staff to report back at a subsequent meeting, or a board member or the board itself may take action to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. So if anybody would like to make a comment or a question. Andrea Torrance. 1 minute.
I had, I guess it's rumored, I don't know if it's true, and you can confirm yes or no, that you have been served some documents to resign from the board or recall. Is that correct?
I can just tell you that I have been served documents and I have not had a chance to read any of it at this time because, again, with getting tonight's board meeting put together and still recovering from doing breathing treatments and things like that, I have not got a chance. So I really have no comment at this time, but I have been served paperwork. Any other questions? All right, motion to adjourn. The next regular meeting is Wednesday, February 9th, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Good night, everybody.